Like, are you?
Who is your community? Is it people who look like you, think like you, speak like you, and act like you? Or is it something bigger than you? Hi, I'm Rashayla Marie Brown, the R&B, and this is Rage to Master. Today we're diving into some of the most urgent and heartfelt conversations I've had about Black women's liberation, reclaiming our time, and learning to trust and discover what the true meaning of community is, not only with each other, but outside of those who look like us, and about learning to trust not just others, but ourselves. In my last episode, I consciously began with someone who does not share my racial or gender identity in order to show that what I perceive as community is not just about those who share the boxes that I tick on a census form. I wanted to explicitly show that my community is not just people who look like me, but people who are aligned with the values that are most dear to me. But if you spend more than 5 minutes with me in person, you will quickly discover that I am an extremely proud Black woman. And you know, I've been thinking about what does it mean for us to root for each other? What does it mean to build community? You'll hear me discussing today with two phenomenal Black women artists, Tsedaye Makonnen and Ayana Evans. These women did not wait for the art world to give them a seat at the table. They created their own space by bum rushing the stage. They kicked down doors, carved their own lanes, and created spaces not only for themselves, but for others to be uplifted. You'll also hear me sit down with Juliana Huxtable, a brilliant DJ and visual artist who has navigated the minefield of respectability politics with a bold vision of radical politics. We address specifically those subtle digs that actually come from other Black women in our community to put down young Black girls, queer girls, radical girls, those who don't fit into the notion of what a Black woman is supposed to look like in public.
So I wanted to talk to you both because y'all my friends. And because we have a text group that keeps me sane in the art world. One of the other reasons why I really wanted to start this podcast off with y'all is because y'all are Black women who work with, you know, your body, but you also work expansively outside of that. And you also think about like systems and structures for how we can support ourselves when the institutions don't be giving us like the big ass checks if they gave everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I think that we have a unique perspective, which is actually like a very masterful perspective, how to navigate the art world, quite frankly. How do people kind of get out of being like all the way in like this space of like being a hater, essentially, to like actually critiquing and understanding the system that you're a part of?
Well, okay. This is totally my opinion, but I feel like to be fully labeled a hater, the way I perceive haters to be people who don't do the work and who are just like on the side being like, that's definitely not the case for the three of us at all. We bust our ass and we're critical, like, and discerning. It's so important. And I think that we have a very special lens from being on the outside and the inside. We're in it, but we get to step back and see from like the whole picture because we're also pushed out of it.
Right. Talking about being in it and of it. Like that's kind of like part of it, right? And I was just thinking about like Yana, you just got like a New York Times, like the career thing that we all like, no, like your feature in New York Times. And I think a lot about like the struggle and the hustle that you've had for years. And I don't know, there's probably like some people checking for you now who wasn't checking for you just like 5 months ago.
I'm still not comfortable with it. And I know that sounds a little ungrateful. I'm not trying to be ungrateful. But like people bring it up a lot. And I wasn't, I didn't understand that that's what it meant. I knew it was good. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I like, oh, it doesn't matter. I thought it was good, but I really thought it would be like y'all, like the homies would call and be like, congratulations, I read your article.
Right.
And that would be it. Like, that's all I really expected, like real talk. So when people called and were like, I want you for this show, I want you to give a talk, I want you to be on my podcast, not you, I'm talking about people that didn't know me. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, wow, okay. I didn't know that would happen. So, and I started, it was the first time I had a feeling of, oh, this is a tipping point. I never felt like that before. I never felt like this one thing pushed me further than a lot of other things after years and years of work.
Right.
So it's a weird feeling. The cosign matters more than I thought. Like, it's like somebody co-signed what I'm doing, and now people are like, oh, I understand it, and I'm gonna study it because the Times said you're worth more than a page.
Right.
The big deal, and that's interesting to watch, but it doesn't make me angry because I've met people who are like, you weren't checking for me before you. I'm like, hold up, I've been working real hard to be happy in my tipping point, and I'm gonna be happy in my tipping point. Maybe you didn't for me before, you only for me because you read one article in the Times. Do I think that's smart? No. But am I going to yell at you? No.
How do you like deal with the idea of people like underestimating you and not assessing like properly the value that you bring to the art space?
I mean, my immediate response is, this is like the ego part of me where I'm just like, you late. Like, I've been fly. You're just late to the party, but whatever.
I love the hair flip.
Right.
Welcome. I mean, I feel like that about all my friends. Like, all these people that now all of our careers are weirdly enough, they're kind of taking off at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm like, oh, great. Of course. It's like, yes, this is what we want, because we don't want to be, we don't want $50 honorariums anymore. We want to pay more, right? Like,
Say that on record. Don't
yo,
argue with that no more.
no.
I might embarrass you.
Yo, see, but it is. But even when we were working at the level that we were working at for those $50 honorariums was sick. Like, we still sing, but nobody paid us any mind.
Right.
Because we didn't have the validation of something like the New York Times or Vogue or institutions or whatever. So it is like, it is a weird, I know what it means. It's a weird feeling because it's like, oh, wow, like now I'm madder because of these things, like that. Yes, of course, these are career highlights. We want them, but there's also like maybe it's like the spiritual side of me or my spirit or something like that also understands like none of that also actually matters. Like, I'm valuable with or without that.
I hate to say like none of this matters because it sounds like I'm saying I don't care. It's not that I don't care, but you're right, on a spiritual level, that's not what matters. What matters is my friends. What matters is that I'm doing the work that I'm proud of, that makes me excited, and that's my compass. And if that stays your compass, then you're fine. But the second you're trying to like do work to get you your next Times article, you lost.
So they and I had a great time in Venice acting a fool. It was a terrible time, but we made the most of that. We were like running away from guards who were telling us not to like go into places. Like, we were doing the
Sneaking in through. Yeah, it was that hotel.
Oh my God, this was hilarious. Oh,
Got your list to get in. We'll find a side door, which we did, and it was open. And then that like African uncle was chasing us in the hotel.
Why would we go to this, right? If we know who we are, right? We are the enlightened queens that we are. And we know that the only thing that matters in our careers, right, is like we're making the work that matters to us, that our communities are here for us and riding for us, that we are able to like find meaningful ways to express what we're trying to do in the world. Like, why go at all? Like, why do we go to the art fairs?
But okay, so two things. We nosy. I'm nosy. Maybe I'm nosy. So I want to see what everybody had on, what they work look like in person, not on random. And I want to be able to say I was there. So that's the nosy part of me. It's just like,
and there's also the fun part.
There's a fun part. Yeah. It's actually low key. I could be wrong because I'm not at this level yet. But I think it's more fun to sneak in and scam them than it is to be invited proper and just walk in. I think there's fun in that. There's a few there that's delightful. But then also, okay, so we know what matters most, but we also know it matters that you show your face at those art fairs. Right. If you don't show your face at any of those things for a year, you've erased yourself from the scene in a way.
So I'm curious just to hear if y'all have like any scenarios, situations, feelings about like you get into that space where you feel like you hitting the danger zone. You might get canceled, you might get pushed out, and like how you backpedal out of that. Like how do you like snatch yourself back to the reality that you got to pay your bills and these people actually do have some kind of power over it.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like you have to see it as like the art. Well, these are your coworkers.
Yeah.
Right. So you're at an art opening. You were with your coworkers. So you want to keep your job? Don't make it so HR got to come for you. Like I do think of it that way.
We all have this where like we have like there's no filter, and I forget. Like I mean, the way that we show up at panels is real regular. Rarely am I like, I don't know. At least I can be very. I don't know. I think it's the rebel rouser in me. I'm gonna just be myself person, but yeah, I do find myself often in a lot of situations where I'm like, ooh, I probably shouldn't have said that, or ooh, I probably like, no.
Maybe I'm a fool. There's rare times where I say I shouldn't have said that, but usually it works out.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm the person that's like inappropriate in the way that maybe I tried to hug you and you like felt like that was way crossing the line. Like I'm not formal as a person, and I don't really believe in it. Today I don't like hierarchies. I'm not good at it. How about that? I'm actually horrible at being appropriate.
Yeah, that was a Black event. The hierarchies there that we saw was so disturbing. And it was one of those where, so I've been very honest about it to other people, kind of like in the way that I'm honest about like what curators had on me and my friends, like talked about that. Like, so those are the things where sometimes I'll be on mic talking about it. I'm like, I just stabbed my career.
It's almost like we imitate corporate structure within the art world.
That's a good point. That's a good answer.
So you have your coworkers, you have your higher ups, you have your mid-range managers. You can't trust the manager with any.
Nope.
Never. He goes to the manager. like the art world really does mimic corporate structures.
Yep. That's so sad.
No, like there's certain, you have to know like how to navigate and move and all of that. Like it's a game. It becomes if you treat it like a game, it doesn't crush you the same way.
One thing I admire is that what you're saying right now, Yana, is that it's really about looking at it as a game, but also looking at it as like these are your coworkers, so you can kind of take your emotions out of it a little bit.
Yeah. I feel like in art, we kind of go into it wanting to like every single coworker.
Tsedaye, you did a piece, like an actual artwork that was critiquing directly like the work of another artist.
The art world is really like the playground. It's like recess. The way that people are messy and yeah.
And this is what I think has been shown by the taking up of that piece, Tsedaye, is that it's been written about extensively. People have been talking to you about it, shown a lot, because people realize that there is a legitimate critique happening in the work that needs to happen that isn't about like a personal vendetta, like a thing that you have against white people or something.
Right.
I mean,
it's interesting that like the feedback I got from so many people was like, I'm so glad you said something about that. Like I couldn't even look at that thing at the Venice Biennale 2019 where Shayla and I were cutting up. There was on display a boat that in 2014 or 2015, I always mix those years up, drowned on the coast of Italy. There were up to 12, the production and the number that they say is 800 to 1,200 migrants, mostly of African descent, mostly dark skinned. Because that, the sub-Saharan and North Africa split that happens, drowned. And Christophe Bruhel, a Swiss-Belgian white man who loves controversy. The Venice Biennale prior to that, he put a mosque inside of a church.
right.
This time, I just saw new numbers that projected up to almost 40 million euros to install that boat at
Wow.
Venice Biennale. And it was placed in front of a cafe restaurant on the water with no context. It was just this boat. And when you look at it, and I remember Yana, we were talking, it's like, you can tell people were packed in there like sardines. It cannot hold that many people.
Yep.
And so I did a performance twice at the opening week, and then I went back for the closing weekend. The only thing that's out right now is the closing weekend performance. But both times the Biennale tried to stop me. They sent their police, from like their police who actually look like cops to the plainclothes like Secret Service people that dress like they're going to the club. And on both times it was it was a violent reaction from the Biennale.
Right.
Yeah, but they want to act like they're not racist, and all.
Yeah.
It's one of probably the most racist places in the entire world, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, but the second time I went, I gave him a heads up. I emailed the head curator, and Biennale was
Oh,
like,
you were real mature the second time.
Yeah.
Co-workers, see?
growth. I actually I love
Let me
it.
contact your manager.
Yeah.
Her typey fingers, like.
Wasn't the artist cool with it too anyway?
Yeah, because he loves controversy.
That's what I kind of feel like that's what he needs.
But low key, I respect.
To activate a legitimate critique. Like, he needs somebody to be like,
Yeah, I respect that he welcomed it though, because he could have been an a-hole about it and been like, "Oh, but I don't want that critique."
Right.
He took it on the chin. I respect that.
Yep. Yeah. But the whole thing is that to them, it was an object. It wasn't something that should have been corporeal. Just art world, capitalistic, white, just sick. Like, what? How is this an object?
It's literally a vessel of death. Like, the only thing it should have been is a memorial.
but do it in a way that you're not also just gonna get exploited. Your presence is not going to be another form of labor for them.
Right. Like, we think of it as a scam. But here's the funny thing. If you were like a white male, would you think that was a scam? Or would you think I'm entitled to do this?
Yep.
And our presence validates
Yes,
a lot of things that they say that they're about. I mean, we're seeing this now that like a lot of our leaders are,
figured it out.
I mean, but a lot of these institutions are going to disappear, right? A lot of our institutions are going to be really financially struggling and already are.
Yeah.
I am just now getting to the point where I'm like, I know I've been talking about it, but now I'm really about like, you pay me. Like, I'm really so gone from looking for institutional acceptance that isn't about them acknowledging what I bring to this space.
Right.
You should never let them forget this.
Yeah.
Very polite requests from Black artists and people from different communities asking for a certain kind of institutional acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're past that point. I think we're at the point where it's not about asking them to acknowledge us. It's about us taking away what we have and putting it in a place where we can really benefit from it. Ultimately, I am talking about us just planting the seeds as much as we possibly can. At a crucial point in our history as a people, it's a crucial point in our history as like a country, as a world, to start planting that seed for us being in charge of our own in like any way fashionable, possible, imaginable, that we really think about like, what would it take? What would it take for us to have something that operates like the New York Times is operating for your career, Yana, or the Venice Biennale is operating for your Tsedaye? Like, what would it be like for us to imagine something where it's like us and not the us who's ultimately still pandering for that acceptance, who's still like, well, we did need a corporate sponsor and it just so happened to be the one that sells a lot of liquor. Or, oh, we did need some people to show up, so we just brought these people who are known for like violating the consent of Black women all the time. Like, no, we have a real space for us.
It would take us supporting each other radically.
Yeah.
Fully. So it means I have to be as excited about reading the article when it's in this Black version of Vogue, of the Times, of whatever.
Yeah.
I have to be just as excited about that and hold it in as much esteem for it to then translate into social capital and actual capital. We're not there. we're not there mentally. And I know that's like not a happy thing to say, but that's like
No, Tsedaye, you about to jump in. Get in on that.
I was gonna say, I also like Yana and I have had, because we've been collaborating for so long. We were talking about how like man, like we really are a bit too avant-garde for a lot of even Black institutions where what we expect is, but it's asking so much of them because they're so used to these white structures that are so suffocating. And these are from also Black institutions and other Black people that we're coming up against. And so that makes me, I mean, this is also a sad note. I don't know how many people are there yet. Like, I think
even want to be there. How about that?
Right. I think there's still a lot of people within our community who still want to continue these structures.
Well, let's be clear. I'm not about no anarchy. What I'm about is raising taxes to a criminally high level on people who've gotten away with a lot and redistributing that to all of the places where it has disappeared and dried up. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you both so much for having this rigorous, intellectual, and hilarious conversation with me, because I need this from an emotional standpoint. It's been a really hard year for all of us, but I think like just having these moments, connecting where we can, is like everything. And as much as I hate art fairs, as soon as I'm able to like see myself in an art space again, I'm gonna probably tackle y'all. Like I'm just gonna like jump on your back.
Fun to run into all your friends.
That's what I miss. As much as I hated that shit, now I'm like, that was the good thing, because I get to see people.
Good old days.
I know, the good old days where we used to have to like sneak into places and, you know, get chased out by guards. I miss that, you know.
Hi, I'm Oprah Tyra Wendy. And today's guest needs no introduction, my mother.
Tell me, and America, of course, why would you want to be on reality television?
Growing up, you know, biracial, you know, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, blah, blah, blah. And all that I went through, you know, not knowing, you know, my parents, and then meeting my father and getting to know him for, you know, 7 years, and trying so hard to meet my mother, you know, and then finding out through research from my daughter, Rashayla, that they are actually very racist, Trump supporters, and Republicans.
So if you had stayed with your birth parents on either side, you would have been a Republican.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not a Republican.
Really?
Decide.
Thank you again for joining us tonight. And now I'd like to welcome to the podium Rashayla Marie Brown, SAC's Director of Diversity Inclusion, who will introduce Juliana Huxtable. Thank you.
Juliana Huxtable arrived on the planet with all the elements of the zodiac in her palm, the forces of the fire, the air, the earth, and the water. She has since already lived several lifetimes of experiences in traversing worlds, the art world, the fashion world, the music world, just to name a few. And her work beckons us to travel into other worlds of her making. A fierce advocate, a new icon that makes a self out of many symbols, both the muse and the maker. She works. Do you feel like visibility is a requirement for liberation?
I think that it's different at different times historically. Like, I feel like at one point, the distribution of images, just by the fact of how much labor had to go into the production of images and the amount of resources required to produce or distribute an image, made visibility more so directly in line with like something that could be perceived as activism or something.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that relationship kind of developed, like the idea of visibility, and the idea of visibility is something that's tied in with a sort of like idea of progress. There's such a high demand for visibility, and because of the technological capabilities of our current moment, I think that visibility can actually outpace, if not outright sabotage, ideas of like on the ground process. And like I especially think about that in terms of gender, both in terms of gender, specifically regarding like the kind of like transgender moment that's happening, but also, and in a lot of ways, also in relation to something like Black Lives Matter in a lot of ways, where I have to ask myself, like, I remember I got to a point where I stopped sharing articles and police videos because I had to ask myself if is the oversharing of these images making people more aware of it, or is it making it normal? And I don't know the difference between that, because for the same reason that it's when it comes to questions surrounding like transgender issues or rights or whatever, you have hyper visibility in the media in a lot of ways. Like every CNN special, everyone wants, how can we get a trans? How can we get a trans? How can we get it? And it's like, it's kind of manic. And it's kind of terrifying to watch. But that visibility is, I think to assume that somehow has a direct relationship with representation and representation in terms of like resources, rights, like economic access in an art context, just in terms of numbers and presence and you know, museums, and I don't think there's a direct relationship, and I think it's inflationary.
Yeah, that makes me think a lot about your piece with the cardboard cutout of Obama, and you're kind of dressed as like a counterpoint to his like very respectable image, because you're kind of like, you know, got the nails in the hair and everything, like, hey, this is my boyfriend kind of thing, and I think a lot about that in relationship to, we have a very visible leader, someone who is Black, and a lot of times people think of that as like a very major progress, but we're also having unprecedented levels of actual violence against actual Black people at the exact same time. And I feel like that moment for me is very kind of in very like sharp focus, especially as it relates to Black identity. So I'm thinking of like specifically maybe somebody like Bell Hooks talking about the oppositional gaze. So maybe thinking about the concept of the gaze, but like inverting it or like creating some other kind of element to it. And so I was wanting to know, what are some of your thoughts around the gaze, specifically as it relates to those kind of concepts?
Wasn't until that you asked that question that I really thought about this, but throughout my life I've always been hyper aware of how I'm perceived by other people as sort of like, I would even say a primary source of a primary fixation, a primary like a constitutive part of my psyche is my relationship to others' perceptions of me. And whether that was like younger and having a visibly in between gendered or otherly gendered body, whether that's just being Black in a town where the way that I express being Black generally comes with like all of the corporality and like your body, and you are visible, you are synonymous with visibility, but the particular nexus of how I expressed myself, I've always been aware of that. Like I can, and even sonically, like I hear, when I was in school, like growing up, I would like I could listen to conversations around me. I could hear if someone was talking to me like 3 seats over, and I would look over and I would like, and this sort of sense of almost like a paranoia over over how I'm perceived. And in New York, earlier on when I read as more genderqueer, that affected it. And so when I think about when I'm developing these characters, it's about combining different like symbols and like visual symbols, but trying to embed them in a way where I can reverse where something that would be paranoia now becomes like almost like encryption or something. And so exploiting those things, and that's why I thought it was interesting that I got that question yesterday when she was like, well, we've had to see you like sexualizing yourself. And the when she kind of tried to come for me.
Right.
But,
yeah, we all noted that.
That's intentional. I realized that. Yeah. And like it's also an experiment, and every time I use my body or my any part of my self in a different way, it's an experiment in learning about that. How can I turn paranoia into like encryption or something? I'm not necessarily inspired by celebrities so much. If anything, I'm inspired by the possibility for anyone to sort of be a celebrity, a sort of, and I really like the idea of micro celebrity, and I think that MySpace, like SoundCloud, like Tumblr, you know, these YouTube, but these like places where you can just kind of generate your own community in response to what you're doing. And I found the sort of characters and personalities and what you could call celebrities in that context way more interesting. I know that when I go to places like that, there's like a sort of sense of me as like a public figure, and like but it's kind of weird for me because I still don't feel that way. I'm like, I still live in the same house that I lived in before, and I don't have like financially, I definitely don't feel like a celebrity at all. I feel like when I look at the characters that I create, I'm like, that's a celebrity. You know, I'm like, this is to me, this is like an icon, and it takes like a sort of desire for kind of like cross hybridization and like iconoclasm, and taking references from these communities and creating a figure that I hope and that I think people can look to and be like, that's the thing.
I've noticed also a lot of, and even outside of people who use photography or make photographs of themselves, whether they consider that self-portrait or just they're using themselves as like a stand-in for something else, but performance artists as well, I think a lot of times it seems like there's this kind of anxiety about being seen.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of that with, which is why, oddly enough, which is why it's funny that I thought that woman asked me that question, because I was like, you obviously didn't pay attention to any of the text, you didn't pay attention to any of the performance work, you didn't pay attention to any of the videos. To leave this with the impression that because there's really maybe 2 or 3 images in this presentation that I'm really sexualized, that's your only impression. It's almost like, this is why I do it, because you loved and you wanted to hate so much. You were so bothered. And she actually used the language, she was like, subjected us to your,
like we have been assaulted like, in our eyes by this.
Like I was just like rubbing my tits in her face or something. I was like, I kind of was like, this is kind of why I do this, like, because you're so like panini right now. But your comment yesterday about how Judith Butler's performativity theory, and how this idea that like gender is all this performance and like we're just performing these roles that we've been kind of like presented with, but how you have stated that that theory actually fails like the reality of intersex people. It actually fails miserably in the face of like actual people experiencing these different types of situations where their bodies are being like modified against their will. So I was just interested in like thinking about different terms of performance, like the non-performative or non-performance, and like performativity as it's understood in like queer subculture, but how that actually doesn't really function in that way all the time. Like for me, performance is like really a refusal to engage at least a sort of normal idea of what performance art is. Like I think that performance art typically means, or people presume performance art to mean, using your body, a lot of cult of you to provoke an audience via some sort of like confrontation that makes them uncomfortable. Nakedness, like excretion, sort of like violence, and so the idea that like provoking via the body as kind of the basis for, and obviously we've gotten to a point now where performance is like a totally expanded field, but that's still kind of a prevailing, especially for people of color. It's like there were people who've come to my performances and they're just like, that wasn't a performance, and I was like, yes it was. Like they're like,
wow,
like they were like, you like barely, it was just like your voice, and like you weren't really doing anything. There's all these other things going on, and I was like, that's the point. And the fact that you're kind of panini about this is like, so performance for me is a means to refuse presence and consumption and like all of those things. It's like it's one of the few places where people of color actually, it's like people of color have used performance, women have historically used performance. It's like it's just like, and it's, you can presence, and it's like sometimes it's kind of frustrating to have to, for that to be the primary way to get access, you know, to sort of like institutions and critical engagement with your work. But like, yeah, I think it's a powerful tool. that can be exploited.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about time. Time, freedom, something I am very passionate about. We are in a crisis of time poverty, where most people don't even have enough time to meet their basic needs and to possibly even dream. Now, when I'm talking about time freedom, I'm not talking about something that is absolute, because just like any resource, nothing is a given. Even if you are wealthy or even if you have health, these things are not always going to be guaranteed. And it's the same with time freedom. I'm talking about waking up most days with the ability to say yes or no to the first things that you do. I'm very interested in waking up in the morning and knowing that the majority of my day is doing tasks that I find meaningful or enjoyable. This also is about the idea of the ability to say no. So time freedom is a goal, it's a practice. It is something that you cultivate, and there are many days when I don't have it. So here's the radical part for me. You don't need millions of dollars in order to reclaim your time. What you need is creativity and community. You need connections to support what you can't carry alone. But on that path, you still have to ask yourself questions of authenticity. Am I living the life that I want? Am I doing the things that bring me joy? Am I building relationships that align with my vision, that support me in the person that I am becoming? The most important thing that you can do is to have self-compassion. And self-compassion is not about ego or pretending like you didn't make mistakes when you did. It's just about being nice and understanding towards yourself in the same way that you would want a friend to do for you. So remember here, we are all learning. We are all trying. You don't know what anyone is really dealing with on the inside, but we can continue to show up better and better for ourselves and each other. We can protect our time and our energy and our hearts. And as the brilliant Trisha Hersey says, rest is resistance. Rest is reparations. So first, make sure that you have enough energy and rest to show up for others. I think a lot of us are familiar with that meme where there's a soundbite from Issa Rae saying that she's rooting for all Black people. And I think that that quote has been taken out of context because I think we know when Issa Rae is talking about the liberation of Black people and she's rooting for specific Black people, she is talking about a form of representation that is designed to uplift. When I say that I am not rooting for all Black people, what I'm actually saying is that I root for Black people who have integrity. I root for Black people who protect Black women and the most vulnerable in their community. I root for Black people who speak out against sexual assault and violence no matter who it is coming from. I root for Black people who say what they mean and mean what they say. I root for Black people who lift each other up and not just chasing the spotlight, who understand the complexity of colorism, the pain of silencing, and the scars of sexual assault that affect Black women of all nationalities, skin colors, and class status. I root for Black people who don't just root for their mamas, but for all Black mamas. I root for Black people who care about all Black women, not just their daughters. So beautiful people, when we close this episode, I invite you to ask yourself, who are you rooting for? Thank you for joining me in this space. And remember, you only get one life to live. Make sure it's yours.